Cool, team, hello and welcome. Welcome to this Streamlit tutorial here at PyCon 2023. It is so amazing to be here in front of all of you. I'm going to confess I'm a tiny bit nervous. I've been teaching on Zoom for the last 3 years, and it's very safe on Zoom. I can have 1,000 monitors with all of my code and everything in front of me. So thank you for bearing with me as I venture back into the classroom in front of real people and not just things. One bad thing is that when I tell terrible jokes, I'm going to know that you're not actually kind of laughing, because in my Zoom class, I just take a small smirk as like, yeah, that really landed. But here I'm going to know it's not, but that's fine. So before we begin, hopefully you got the memo that you need Anaconda installed as well as Streamlit. So if you haven't already, please take a moment now to initiate that download. With lots of you trying to download it at the same time, it might be a little bit slow. So try and download it now if you can. If you can't, no worries, you can pip install a lot of things manually. The most important one to pip install is Streamlit itself. It's going to be very hands-on, so if you don't have Streamlit installed, you're probably going to have a bad time. I'm just going to leave this here a moment. If you haven't already done these things, just get that download started so that we can go ahead. Wonderful. Okie dokie. So my name is Lisa, and I have flown here from London, United Kingdom. So if you were wondering what my accent was, it is London. I work as the lead data specialist instructor at a small startup called Digital Futures, and we are all about giving tech training to people from diverse backgrounds. So essentially, I get to teach and train on Python and all of the really fun data science stuff all day, every day, and I really love it. And I'm so excited that I get to share it with you today. And I'm also just a Streamlit enthusiast. I found out about Streamlit a couple of years ago now, and absolutely fell in love. It filled a hole in my heart that I needed in my data science pipelines. So I don't work for Streamlit. They did give me a very nice hoodie for being part of their education program, so thanks, Streamlit. But yeah, I don't work for them. I just really love their product, and I'm so excited to get to share it with all of you today. So, welcome to our tutorial room. Of course, questions are so welcome. Please feel free to interrupt at any point and ask a question. But also help each other along. If you are seeing that angry little red box letting you know there's a syntax error, but you can't quite work out why, try asking the person around you, the person next to you, see if they know why it's not working. You can always throw your hand up as well, and I'll be happy to pop over and take a look. We will be having a break at 3 p.m. I'm told there's coffee at 3 as well. So if you're wondering when break is already, you just have to hang in there until 3. So before we dive in, I want to know a bit about you. So if you could go to ahaslides.com/streamlit, we have a couple of questions for you. Yep, I'll just wait for a couple more of you to join, and then I'll click unlock. Cool, we've got 38 people in. I think we're nearly at critical mass. So the first question, where are you visiting from? Boston does look a little bit overrepresented there. Nice. Nice. I think Boston's like winning just because it's so straightforward. One way to pull it. Nice, easy spelling. Nice. Cool, I think that's most of you. Thank you so much for sharing. And what an international group as well. We've got Singapore hiding on there as well. We've got the Philippines. We've got Germany. So welcome to everyone, regardless of where you are from. Cool, the next question. Oh, someone's typing. Oh. Yay! Nice. Okay, so what is your usual IDE? Where do you like to work and play and develop? Nice, whoever put Vim, very hardcore. Nice, lots of PyCharm, which is good. Lots of VS Code. A little bit of Jupyter on here. Those of us most comfortable working in notebooks, we are going to find that Streamlit requires script files, so .py, no notebooks. So it's a little bit jarring when you first jump into only using a script instead. But cool, okay. You can use any IDE that you like today. That's absolutely fine, as long as it's not a notebook. Cool, next question. So why are you here? Why are you interested in learning about Streamlit? And I need to unlock submissions. I'm loving whoever put, I hate JavaScript. That's it's a sentiment I share for sure. Great. Nice. Cool, these are all of the reasons I was hoping you were here. So we seem pretty aligned with what we're going to be teaching you and what you're all hoping to learn. Fantastic. If you just wanted to fill in a tutorial spot, that's fine as well. We'll see if you enjoy it regardless. Cool, thanks for that, team. So what are you hoping to take away from today's tutorial? What does success look like for you? Again, I'm looking. Nice, okay. Thank you all for sharing. Again, it feels pretty aligned. Hopefully you will go away with all of these things. Love it. And what are the key things you want to learn? Kind of repetitive to the last question. But if you know anything about Streamlit, do you have any questions at the moment? Is there anything you're unsure of? If you're brand new to the library, that's fine as well. Oh, I feel really bad. Whoever put geospatial, I've actually not included any geospatial, which I feel bad about because it is very impressive and so much fun. Whoever is interested in geospatial, just come see me afterwards. I'll send you loads of resources, and we can nerd out about maps and geospatial. But yeah, we're not quite covering geospatial today. But we are doing pretty much the rest of it. Nice. Love it. Cool. Thanks so much, team. And I think the final question, something you're all going to want to take a picture of. Are there any restaurants you recommend here in Salt Lake City? Have you had a nice meal so far and you feel like everyone should go there? Hit up those recommendations. Nice. None? Is that just you think they're all bad, or just you've not been to any yet? Okay. For those still looking, feel free to grab a picture of this and you can take it away. Nice. Of course, the cafeteria lunch area at the conference is the true answer to this. But I can see you've all gone for nice. Love it. Cool. Thank you so much for your submissions there. It will stay open, so if you think of anything, you can add it. This is also a way to ask more discrete questions as well. If you've got a more conceptual question or just anything you want answered at the end, you can always submit them through AHA Slides. But cool, thank you so much for indulging me there. Just going to go back to PowerPoint. Nice. So, let's take a look. The learning objectives for you are that by the end of the session, you should be able to confidently create and deploy single and multi-page apps. Multi-page apps are actually the simplest thing in the world, so it's kind of cheating to even mention them because it's so simple. But we want you to be able to use a variety of widgets for input and output, and hopefully you're going to be excited about Streamlit and understand how to advance and continue your learning. So here is our agenda. We're going to have a quick introduction to the concept of Streamlit and what it does, a little look at how it works, and then we're actually just going to start playing with it, because I'm sure you all just want to start playing and not really listen to much lecturing. So we're going to jump straight into making our own playground and getting to have a look at all of the components. And then we've got two worked examples for you. They're both data science examples where you're going to do some hyperparameter tuning on one of the worst models I've ever created, and then some regression inputs as well. And then we'll wrap up and talk about where to go next. Fantastic. Any questions throughout, just let me know. Wonderful. There are a couple of things that we are not covering today. So we're not going to be covering machine learning. We will be using two machine learning models, but we've already written them for you. They're not particularly great, so I wouldn't take them as best practice. But we're not going to be covering the concepts of machine learning today. We are also not going to go into the specifics of how to use certain visualization libraries. As I'm sure you know, there's another tutorial happening right now just on visualization alone. It's such a huge topic, really vast, really fun. So we're going to look mostly at Streamlit rather than the visualization libraries. Nice. Okie dokie. So, tiny bit of theory. Introduction to Streamlit, how it works, and then we're going to jump into the playground. Nice. So, as you know, you can easily create web apps. You don't need any front-end experience. So we don't need CSS, we don't need HTML, and we don't need JavaScript. So whoever said they hate JavaScript earlier, you can be happy to know you don't need it. One of the great things about Streamlit is that you can use it if you want to. So if you want to use CSS, JavaScript, and HTML, you still can. You can combine that into your app. And for those data scientists among us, it is built with data in mind. There are so many beautiful features for working with data. So much of Pandas is native in Streamlit. So you don't need to reinvent the wheel to work with the components you already know and love. So our favorite machine learning libraries and our favorite visualization libraries just work in Streamlit. It has handlers for just working with our favorite components. So we don't need workarounds, we don't need anything crazy like that. We can just work with our libraries the way that we love to work with them, and Streamlit will just do the heavy lifting for us. So matplotlib, plotly, Boca, Altair, we can just work as we normally would, and Streamlit is just going to make it happen. So where does Streamlit fit in? Really, I just wanted to share with you the Streamlit beautiful cartoons. They have a whole bunch of these, and I really love them. But this is all about the model deployment stage. We can use Streamlit as a web app to really bring our models to life in that model deployment stage. One of our examples actually shows it happening in the model building stage as well. But a lot of it happens for model development. This isn't the only use for Streamlit, though. There are so many ways we can do it. So model inputs, this is one of the examples you're going to see today. So we have a machine learning model, and I'm going to show you how you can use Streamlit to make inputs to get the model to do a prediction. So it really brings the model to life, and you can share it with non-data scientists so that they can make predictions on new data. We can use it for hyperparameter tuning, so that's taking our model, seeing what the different parameters kind of impact on it. Interactive data exploration, interactive dashboards. There's loads of interactivity in what we can do. Really exciting is that Streamlit has a native image kind of interface, so you can pick up images from the web camera or just pictures from the hard drive and then use that in your computer vision as well. Of course, ChatGPT can work with any API, essentially. It's really just Python. So if you want to make an interface for ChatGPT or anything like that, Streamlit is perfect for it. You can also just make interfaces for pretty much anything you want, or front ends for your data. I was recently at a gaming festival where I was running a tournament, and one of the participants came over and said, "Can we see the data? Can we see the leaderboard?" And it was in like a Google Sheet with loads of confidential information in, loads of weird stuff going on, so no, they couldn't see it. But 10 minutes later, I'd really quickly made a Streamlit Community Cloud app that linked to just one page in the Google Sheet, pulled through the information, and made it available to them. I don't know how I would have done that without Streamlit. It would have been very confusing. So there are so many uses for Streamlit, and so many things we can do. Nice. Nearly at the playground bit, I promise. So there are three main things you need to know about. The first one is that everything is a function or a method. It is really beautifully native to Python. So we're going to do st, standing for Streamlit, and then dot, and then the function, or the method, sorry. Dot write is the first one we're going to learn, and it is basically just going to output whatever we give it. If you give it a data frame, it's going to output a beautiful data frame. Give it an image, it's going to output a beautiful image. The next thing is our widgets. These are methods that we're going to assign to variables to get what we want. And then the third thing is the component library. These are third-party extensions of Streamlit. We're not really covering these today because there's so many, but they really extend what Streamlit can do, so they're well worth taking a look at. Nice. Okie dokie. So, first little test for all of you. What we're going to do is just crack open our favorite IDE that isn't a notebook, and we're going to try our very first Streamlit. So it's just import Streamlit as st, and now we're just going to do st dot, and then the method we want to call. So st dot header, and of course we're starting with hello world. Then a new line, and then the only command you ever really need in Streamlit, because once you see how beautiful it is, you're only ever going to want to play with this. So st.balloons, open brackets, close brackets. Once you've done that in your IDE, you're going to want to save that as streamlit_app.py. Cool. Once we've done that, we're going to anaconda prompt, and we're going to call Streamlit, followed by run, followed by the name of the file you just gave. And hopefully we're all going to see some hello world and some balloons. If you struggle with this stuff and it's not working, just throw your hand up, and we will try to debug. But hopefully we're all seeing some beautiful balloons. Okay, team, it sounds like most people have now got it running. Thank you for your patience there while we did some live debugging. So one thing I would like you to do is go back to your original file and change st.balloons to st.snow, S-N-O-W, snow. And just hit save on your file and pop back to your Streamlit interface. You should see that it prompts you that the source file has changed, and it wants you to just hit rerun. So now you can start to see the development cycle you're going to be using locally. You don't need to keep rerunning that file. We can just make changes, hit save, and it's going to reload and rerun for us. So give that a go and enjoy the snow. You got some snow? You got some snow. It's pretty cool, right? You know balloons and snow now. You know basically everything you need. Ready for production. Okie dokie. So to get us started, what we've done is create some starter code. So if you want to head to this URL, so rb.gui/408qs. If you don't quite trust link shorteners, the full link is the one at the bottom. So it's just a GitHub repository. If you want to go ahead and download that to your local machine. This is the starter files. It's also the solutions, but don't peek at the solutions. Download the starter files, and it's going to give us the framework we need to progress through the rest of the tutorial. I'll just pause for a moment to let you go ahead and download that. If anyone needs a hand, just throw their hands up. Are we all good? Have you downloaded it? Yeah, good. Everyone got the files? Okay, perfect. Okie dokie. So, it is time for the live coding to begin. So bear with me, I'm just going to swap to my IDE of choice. I'm not quite ready to let go of Jupyter Notebooks just yet, so I'm still using Jupyter. We're just going to be doing it in non-notebook mode. So the file you want to head for is the playground.py that sits in Playground. So if you want to go ahead and open that up. That was totally expected, and showing you a little bit of error handling here. It seems like, I don't know, I don't have Jupyter running, so let's just close everything and try opening up Jupyter. Okie dokie. So, what we've done is created nice little headers for you so that we can see what's going on and remind us what we're going to do. So the first thing we're going to do is add a title, header, and subheader to our page. So we're always going to be starting with that st dot. Pretty much everything is always going to be calling the library and then telling it what method. So unsurprisingly, it's just going to be st.title. Could spell things correctly if you would like, or you could just mistype them for fun. Give it a header maybe. Here we go. Nice and simple. Nice. So one thing we're going to need to do is go back to Anaconda prompt, which is appearing so tiny for all of you. I'm so sorry. But if you want to go into your Anaconda prompt, it's going to be Streamlit, run, and then playground.py, making sure you're in the correct folder location. So wherever that playground.py is, that's where we need to be running this from. Once we hit enter, it should, in fact, launch the Streamlit server and give us our playground. Yeah, that's awkward. Perfect. Here is a great example of how errors happen. I did this intentionally just to show you what the errors look like. But we actually get some really handy, nice little pop-ups letting us know what has gone wrong. So unterminated, string literal, literally the error I see all the time. Let's go back to our code now. Just going to go ahead, fix my error. Again, I can now just hit Control Save, pop across, and I've got this always rerun button. If I want to go ahead and click that, every time I save my file, it's going to go ahead and make that change to what I've done. So pretty neat way of working. You can see that we're actually working with a multi-page app here. You can just go ahead and get rid of the sidebar for now. We don't need it. Fantastic. So we have a title, we have a header, we have a subheader as well. Easy peasy. Oh, yours might just be, yours may be in light mode. Yours might look a little bit like this. Some of you now saying you seem blinded. I will put mine back into dark mode. If you want to join team dark mode, you just go to the 3 lines up here. We go to settings, and then we can pick dark like so. Another setting you'll see there is wide mode as well. This just means it uses up the entire container rather than just being quite centered. So we have title, header, subheader, and we now know how to switch between doing our code and then seeing the results. Quite instant results in Streamlit, which always feels quite nice. Are we ready for the next bit? We want some more. Fantastic. Cool. So one of the things that we can do is st.text. The really fun thing about st.text is if we go ahead and do some multi-line strings like so, it's going to pay attention to the white space that we put in. So it just shows the string we pull in however we pull it in. So if you want to put indentations in, tabs, things like that, it's going to be quite respectful of that and display that for you. And if you want to put emojis in, you can, of course, also put emojis in. Here is a beautiful sentence I crafted earlier, hitting save, popping back to the playground. You can see it's honored my white space that I've put in. So if you want to display text and you want it to be honored, you can do that. Easy peasy. Cool. So now we are going to add a divider to our code. So that's just going to be st, as always. You'll never guess the code to add a divider. Brownie points if you guessed it was divider. Div was a good, to be fair, div was a good guess. But yeah, just divider. And just like that, you can see we now have a divider over here. There's not many tricks in Streamlit. Everything is named very beautifully. It really is just what you want it to be. It's a divider, so the code is divider. Nice. Cool. Oh, you're getting an... Yeah, what does your error say? No attribute divider. And did you install Streamlit a long time ago? Yeah. I don't think divider is that new, but the wonderful person who actually works at Streamlit is going to take a look for you. Nice. So, are we ready to make our first button? To make our button, it is going to be quite simple. We're actually going to start with a variable name. And just like any variable name in Python, it can be anything you want within the rules and parameters of Python. I'm going to really creatively just call mine my button, because that's how descriptive my coding gets. But I am a data person rather than an actual Python developer, so we get away with not following the same kind of coding standards as an actual developer. Cool. So, unsurprisingly, it's going to be st.button, and then we're going to give it a label, like so. Here we go. Click me. Love it. Of course, when we click it at the moment, it's not really gonna do anything. So the way that we interact with something like a button is so simple. It's just an if statement. So we just say if my button, and then just like a normal if statement, the thing that we want to execute when the button is clicked goes here. So you can pick balloons or you can pick snow. You just have to spell both of them correctly, like so. Nice. And now, they are some very giant balloons because I'm very zoomed in. But that is it. We use a really simple if statement. So we're assigning that button to a variable, in my case, my button, and then we just say if my button. And then any of the code that we put there is going to execute when we click the button. It's so beautifully elegant and simple. There we go. Nice. If at any point you want to kind of show your code as you go along, we have a beautifully elegant way of doing this, which is with echo, like so. I'm just going to go ahead and indent this now, and hopefully. Cool. You can see that it's going to execute and work still, but if you use echo, it goes ahead and also shows the code. So quite useful when you're running a tutorial and you want people to be able to see the code and the thing that's been executed. You don't need to add the echo if you don't want to. But it's quite nice in the playground because then you see where all the code comes from. you can see that it's quite satisfying to, is everything good? Okay. It's quite satisfying to click the button. So shall we add a counter to see how many times we click the button? How many times are we tempted to view those beautiful balloons or snow? So let's try this, right? Yeah, we've kind of, okay, never mind. Cool, so what we are going to do, we're first of all going to make a placeholder. So I'm just going to call mine text1. And I'm going to do st.empty. Empty is a placeholder, and it means that we can overwrite text1 later with what we want it to be. So we're going to create this, and then we can update it in a bit. And just like most basic Python, I'm going to do my counter equals 0, if I can remember how to type. Nice. So I'm going to make a brand new button called second button. Like so. Nice. Now we just need to add the action, right? So it's going to be if second button my counter plus equals 1. And now, because we made that empty placeholder earlier, what we can do is, rather than st dot, we're going to do the name of the object we want to change, and then dot right. And this is essentially going to overwrite that same placeholder with the text we now want it to display. I'm going to use an f string and go for you've clicked the button counter times, like so. Thanks, team. Yeah, that's cool. I've escaped them, right? Cool. As you can see, thank you for the hint there. As you can see, my button does not work. It's never getting above 1. It's so sad, so sad. Would anyone like to have a guess or tell me why? Why does my counter never get above 1? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So one of the key fundamentals we need to know about Streamlit is that every time we interact, by default, it's going to rerun the script from the top to the bottom, which means when we have an assignment like my counter equals 0, what we're actually doing is resetting that counter back to 0. So it's never going to get above 1, because every single time we're pulling it back to 0. Of course, the incredibly clever people at Streamlit thought about this problem and have a solution for us. So this brings us to the session state. Session state is a back-end component that is always there. As long as your little Streamlit server is running in the background, our session state is going to be there. So instead of using counter directly, we can interact with the session state. We can either store our counter in the session state, or we can do something with session state to decide if the counter needs to be set to 0 or not. So shall we fix our button and add in a little bit of session state? Nice, let's do this. So we're going to come back up to here where we have my counter is 0. And we're going to say if counter not in, and it's just st.sessionState. Oh, this is so annoyingly narrow. There we go. So if the counter is not in session state, we are going to say st session state, and this now just works exactly like a dictionary. It's a dictionary with key value pairs. So we are going to say counter, and we are going to set that to 0. And this just means if that counter does not already exist, it's going to add it. And session state is persistent. It doesn't get wiped when it reruns. So now all we need to go down and do is fix my counter. So rather than my counter, it's just going to be st session state. And you can do the attribute shortcut if you want, or you can do the square bracket method as well. If I haven't made a mistake, we should now get an error because we're still iterating the wrong thing. Cool. So of course, this should be st session state dot counter. Yay! So you can see that we can now happily click the button and it's going to go ahead and update. That was a fair amount of code, so I'm going to pause for a second, just give you a moment to catch up. But all the code you need is there. If you're stuck or you need a hand at this point, just throw your hand up and I'll come over and see if we can debug. Yeah, so the counter is going to set, you could have called it my counter, but...
Yeah, because I set it here.
Oh, okay, yeah, you've gone for like a different kind of method. Yeah, so just get rid of my counter. Yeah, we don't, that's like old news. Yeah. And yeah, you made the same mistake I did. You can blame me. Oh, so this needs to be... No. So this is going to be st.sessionState. Yeah, exactly. Sorry, that wasn't clear.
That makes sense now. Instead I don't need here, if I here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice. I love it. Good job. It's really satisfying, huh? Just like clicking the button and seeing it go up. Hi. Yeah.
So I see the ST button, the signature of it has an on-click in here.
Yes.
I was wondering if the on-click is the same kind of function as the if ST button. Like, can you run a function with the on-click? Or
You can run a function with it, which is really, really super cool. So yeah, you can define like custom functions and then just assign them to function clicks. Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's so good. We didn't quite follow the comment prompts, so if you're really liking things to be in the right place, feel free to adjust the comment prompts. But yeah, we kind of fixed it at the top instead of doing it. Cool, so now you have a new thing to take back to your friends, your family, your colleagues. You can give them a button that they can click. To be fair, there was cookie clicker at one point, the whole game where you just clicked a cookie. So you've kind of sort of replicated that, so congratulations. Cool, so the next thing I want to draw your attention to is actually, one second. So in Playground, the folder we gave you, you would have seen that there's something called pages. And this is actually how you create a multi-page app. They've made it so, so simple. It's just all about the tree structure that you use. So you're always going to have a home page or a first page, and that's always going to sit in your root directory, and that's the one you call initially. But then you can have a pages folder. And this pages folder then contains .py files. And these show up on the sidebar. So it's a pretty neat way of working. We hid that sidebar at the beginning. But you can see you can just add as many .py files as you like, and they are going to show up in your sidebar. And then when you click them, you can see it comes on through. The neat thing about multi-page apps is they share the same Python instance. So any variables you've set on your home page are still going to be there on the subsequent pages as well. That session state is completely shared as well. So if I wanted to, that my counter or st.sessionState counter, I could use it on this page as well. So all of those variables are going to transfer across completely. Cool. Are we ready to play with some data? Yeah, hi. Yes, yeah. So it's one shared state across all of them. So if you keep changing it in a child one, it's going to affect that home one as well. Yeah, absolutely. And it will completely stay until you go ahead and terminate the server, essentially. So that little Anaconda prompt that we get with the local host detail, once you close that, that's when you've essentially closed your session. So it will stay until then. Nice. So if you'd like to go ahead, in your IDE, we just want to go to Playground and then Pages, and then we're going to look at the data playground. You can see that we've gone ahead and popped in some code for you. All this is doing is generating some random data. So 5 columns, just kind of doing some random data. Yay. Cool. So you can see in this section, we're kind of telling you exactly what we're going to do. The first thing we can do is write our data frame using st.write. One of the slides called this the Swiss Army knife, and this is absolutely true. You can do st.write and then put anything you want in there, and it's going to output it to our app. So we can just do st.write and the name of our data frame. And it's going to go ahead, and I'm going to change the HTML. I don't know what happened. I know I didn't touch it. I think I didn't. I slightly knocked the cable, maybe.
It's all right, let's just try it.
Is this the like AV equivalent of turning it on and off again?
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
The refresh rate change? I don't understand why. There it goes.
Oh yeah, it's good now. Thank you. Sorry, team. Where were we? Cool. So you can see it's gone ahead and it's outputted it. I'm just going to quickly put these back on the other sides where they belong. Yeah, that's better. Nice. So this just writes our data frame to the front end for us. But there's some pretty nifty features that we can see. So we can actually sort our data. By clicking a column, it's going to go ahead and sort it. So already adding some nifty little interactivity there. It's also very copy-pastable. You can see it's got some very sexy highlighting going on. You can just select the data you want, hit Control-C, and it's going to copy it to your clipboard. And it copies it in quite a nice way as well, which is really cool. Nice. So that's st.write. Again, we can write pretty much anything we want to the front end. One thing we can also do is st.dataframe. And again, we're just giving it that data frame. Coming over here, scrolling down. And it's actually the exact same output. So st.write's default behavior is the same as st.dataframe. One difference, though, is when you're using .dataframe, you have a couple of parameters that you can control, such as the width. So you just get slightly more options when you do it with st.dataframe. Cool. We also have st.table. Not going to lie, this one's pretty boring. It's just a table. It's non-interactive. Doesn't really do anything. It's just completely static. Sometimes this is the option you want. One cool thing about st.table is it's very customizable with CSS. So if you did want to dabble in really customizing the look and feel, using st.table is a great way of doing that. Nice. But now we move on to the super fun one. You can see we've given you some wonderful code here. Let's take a look. Cool. So for this one, it is just going to be starting with a variable name. We want to save an output from this one. With the previous ones, we were just outputting. We weren't going to be changing anything. With this one, there is a return. There is a change being returned. So we want to assign that somewhere. So I'm going to say edited df equals. And then we're going to do st. And this one is experimental data editor. It's quite a long name. And then we're just going to give it the name of the data frame. So in this case, viz.libs. Another thing we can add right here is num_rows equals dynamic. Nice. So what we actually have here is an editable data frame. So we can actually edit our data live in the web app, and it's just being saved as the data frame itself. So if we were working with any other libraries, we are able to update that data frame and pass it back. So you can go ahead, make some changes to your data frame. There, we can put in a nice little rating. Like so. Nice. Sorry for the atrocious formatting. Not my usual IDE. I normally have a linter that's telling me off and making me have good code. So yeah, my indentation, not according to PEP 8 today. Apologies. There we go. But we can create a download button. So we can have the user interact with and make changes to our editable data frame. Then we can go ahead and download it just as a CSV. Like so. Pretty nifty. I will give you a moment to enjoy making your CSV there. Cool. Are we loving Streamlit? Like, it's so simple, right? It's so satisfying as well. It's so immediate in terms of, like, very simple code, nice outputs. Pretty good dopamine hits from very little code, so loving it. Nice. Cool. Are we ready to look at some inputs? We are going to speed run the input section, because you guys are all now just complete pros at Streamlit. So if you want to go ahead we are going to open the inputs playground. So what we've done here is just define a list called viz library, just contains 4 viz libraries. If you want to add your favorite library, if I missed one out, feel free to edit that. And the question we're going to ask you repeatedly in many different ways is, what's your favorite viz library? I'm going to go ahead and swap to the inputs playground. Okie dokie. So again, we've got the same kind of pattern for you. So we've kind of put in a few placeholders, and we're just going to quickly complete the code. So the first one is radio buttons. Of course, you can only pick one. And this is so nice and simple. We're going to start with the variable. This is going to be where the input is placed so that we can use it. We're going to go with viz selected equals, and then it's just st.radio. And now we can give it a label. So I'm going to pop in that question we preloaded earlier, if I can learn to type. And then The keyword here is options. This is where we give it the list of possible options, and it's going to use that to make our radio buttons. So it's just going to be options equals, and then our iterable, or our list from earlier. There we go. Nice and simple. Unlike HTML, we don't need to go ahead and define multiple inputs here. We can just give it our iterable, and it's going to go ahead and create them all like so. Easy peasy. And you can see that this pattern is going to be pretty repeating. So now we want to go ahead. Oh, if we wanted to, we could, of course, just do a little st.write. I did so well with my f string earlier. I'm going to revisit it so I can prove to you I do know my f strings. We could just say you selected, and then viz selected, like so. And now when you select a new one, it's just going to go ahead and tell you what you selected. Easy peasy. We can do the same now with a Dropbox. So we start again with where we're going to assign it, and then we can go ahead and do, it's called a select box in Streamlit. And again, we're going to give it the label, which is question, and then the options, same as before. There we go. So now we have the same thing, but this time it is a Dropbox. So hopefully you can see the very easy repeating pattern here. One thing to note as well, label is in fact positional. We don't need to say label equals if you don't want to. It is positional. It will just take the first one you give it to be the label. I like to name all of my inputs. I like to keep it nice and clean. But if you want to just put the question, you can. So we have our multi-select. It's very straightforward, this one. Again, we need to assign it somewhere. I'm just going to call it multi-select. And it's just going to be st.multiselect. And I'm just going to skip doing the label here. Feels bad. There we go. The key with this one is, unlike before, it's not going to go ahead and return a single string. It is going to give us back an iterable. So let's take a look. We can still write it to st.write. You can see it's returning a list. It's giving us a nice, beautiful, empty list here. Now we can go ahead. Quite satisfying, just adding some options to our list there, like so. And you can imagine that this has so many uses. Maybe if you've got a data frame, you're letting some users select which columns they're going to see. You could just do that the options are st.columns, df.columns, and go from there. So many uses for all of our inputs. I'm going to leave you to do checkboxes on your own. I don't think it's a trick. I think it's, I really believe in you. You can do this. Checkbox is singular, but I think you can do it now. I really believe. Maybe this was a bit mean. It's slightly changed the pattern. The pattern's the same, but we're just using a bit of an iterable here because we've got multiple options coming through. So here you can see we've had to do a loop in order to get it to do it, but it's exactly the same kind of pattern that we're using. We're assigning it back to a variable. We're just doing that variable in a dictionary to make our life a tiny bit easier. Oops. Maybe I want to output like the name of the option rather than the state of the thing. There we go. Cool. There we go. So basically using that dictionary as a placeholder for the output. We could have done 4 separate checkboxes. Let me just make this code like a tiny bit bigger for you as well. So yeah, you can make 4 separate checkboxes if you want, and then have a state for each of them. But by using this dictionary to loop through, it's just a little bit nicer and a little bit cleaner. Brilliant. We've just got a last couple to go through before you have a well-deserved coffee break. So far we've looked at selecting from a list. Now we're going to look at some really fun numeric inputs as well. So to do this one, again, it's just going to be something like slider value and then st.slider, spelled correctly, slider. We just need to give it a min and a max kind of thing as well here. So I'm going to say my minimum value is 0, my max value is going to be 100. I can also give it a starting value as well. We use just value for this. Let's start at 50 in the middle, why not? And we can also give it a step if we want. So this is when we use the slider, what kind of interval can we pick? I'm going to do a step of 5. I'm also going to introduce you to the help option as well. If we go ahead and say help, we can pull a string here, like so. And I'll show you how this shows up as, ooh. Oh yeah, you need a label. Everything needs a label, right? My bad. There we go. So we now have our numeric slider so really satisfying and really fun to play with. And you can see it's moving in 5s because we've got the step value of 5. We've also now got this little tooltip where our help was as well. So if you're taking user inputs, help is really great for making sure your users put in the right numbers. Nice. You can also apply some formatting as well. So here we've got it formatted to percentage. And again, when you want to output, you're just outputting slider value, really just repeating that same pattern and process that we had earlier. Cool. We also have an option which is an item slider. And again, exactly the same as before. I still can't type. Yeah, slider item equals, it's just st.select slider, like so. Again, it always needs a label and options. This one is really useful if you're doing something like a Likert scale. Maybe you want to do something like very much. Something like this. So many syntax errors today. Yeah, probably should go ahead and close that one. There we go. And now we have our item slider, like so. So really great if you're doing opinions on things and you want to see where people stand. Cool. Last couple now before coffee. We have our text inputs. So there's really two ways of doing our text input. Yeah. We've got our, what's the first one? Let's say it's text input. Let's use that question from earlier. And again, I will need to assign it somewhere, like so. And then we've got this one as well. So text area is our long text. So it's going to give a bigger box and allow the user to put in more information. There we go. I'm very zoomed in, so this one's a lot bigger than it would normally be. But we've got single line and multi-line, essentially. So text inputs and text area. So super useful for taking essentially any input from the user. You can, of course, use validation on this as well. So if you want to make a function where you're going to validate the user input, you can do that as well. And the last two final ones, before we do our worked example after the coffee break, we've got our number input. It's literally just number input, exactly the same as a slider. We need a label, and then we can set our min values and our max values like so. We get this nice little plus and minus. We could set a step for that if we wanted to. We can also just manually put a number in as well. And our very final one for our inputs library is in fact the date. And this is just st date input. There we go. You have now learned all of the basic input types from Streamlit. And actually, this is most of Streamlit now. This is all of the components that you kind of need, or the widgets that you need to start making some pretty cool things. So we're going to take a 3-minute early coffee break so you can be like the firsts to coffee. It's like strategy game plan. If you want to be back in about 20 minutes, we'll then crack on with the first worked example where we use everything you've just learned to apply that to a machine learning model. Any questions, do come see me. But thank you all for your patience and for being here for the first part of the session. Thank you all so much. Okie dokie team, are we ready to crack on and continue learning? Did we enjoy the cookies? They were pretty good, pretty tasty, nice, good thumbs up there. And some good coffee, hopefully we're feeling energized and ready to go. So you've looked at lots of inputs, and now we're gonna do a worked example with those inputs. So this is our end goal. We're trying to make a hyperparameter tuner. So a hyperparameter is just a setting for a model. So if you're building machine learning models, there's a bunch of different options. And the idea here is we're making an input where we can play with those options. The model that we're playing with is actually a pretty bad model. It's had no feature engineering. It's basically had nothing done to it. It's a raw random forest with some pretty terrible data. It's actually the Dota 2 gaming data, if you want to know the underlying data set. So trying to predict whether a Dota 2 team will win or lose. The data itself doesn't really matter in this case. We've also already created the model for you. So the file I've launched right now is called Random Forest Solution, and it sits in the Random Forest folder in the data that we gave you. So if you want to go ahead and navigate to that folder in your Anaconda prompt, you can close your previous one, the playground one, just hit X to go ahead and close it. You can then, I'll just bring mine across so you can see what I did. Can you zoom in this? Oh, you kind of can, yeah, nice. You can see that I just navigated to the correct folder, and then it's Streamlit run random forest solution.py, and it's going to go ahead and launch the server. Nice. Cool, so there's a couple of concepts that I need to take you through for this. The first thing is that I told you that every time we run the script, it's going to run from the top to the bottom. Now imagine if we're importing some data. Doing that repeatedly every single time we run the code is not going to be efficient. Thankfully, we have a really simple solution for this. So in the random forest solution.py, if we have a look at where we're calling in the data, we have this decorator here, st.cache_data. This decorator, I love decorators, by the way. I never find a reason to use them. So every time there's a legitimate use for decorators, I'm like, it's a decorator, yay. But this is a really legitimate use for a decorator. So what Streamlit is going to do for us is see if the inputs have changed, see if what's happening is going to have actually changed. And if it's not going to bother rerunning and recreating this. So there's st.cache data and st.cache resource. And both of these are really going to speed up our processing time because we're no longer going to need to keep rerunning. So our decorator goes above any function, and essentially if it knows that that function won't have changed, it's not going to bother rerunning it for us. Fantastic. The other thing I want to introduce you to is the concept of a form. So with forms, we are able to combine a whole host of different inputs. And then we can have a form submit button. And this means that we're able to edit all of the inputs, then click the button and have it actually submit the change. I'm going through these concepts a little bit quicker than before because we want to make sure you get some time to actually play with this. But it means that all of our inputs, we can change all of them and then execute the code when we're ready, rather than it updating as we go. So let's take a look at our goal. Welcome to the hyperparameter tuner. And you're going to have a go at creating something a little bit like this. We can see that we are using the sidebar. So we don't actually have our lovely pages here anymore. We've actually used st.sidebar. So we can load anything we want into the sidebar by doing with st.sidebar. In this case, we added a form, but you could add anything else you want as well. Cool. So the way this works, we have all of our different things. When you first load it, it's not going to have anything here. You need to click to run the model. But you can see that we can go ahead and change all of our inputs. My favorite thing to do with this is to increase the maximum depth, decrease the minimum samples, and maybe up the number of estimators. You can see it's going to be running quite slow on my machine. It's quite an old machine. But it is rerunning the model from scratch, and we're running 66 random forest there. We can see we have a really super overfitted model. So on the training data, we're getting 99.5%. On our test data, we're getting 57.4%. So have a play with this if you want. Explore kind of changing those parameters, and then click here to run the model. But our challenge for you, and I'm going to be walking around really helping you with this, is to use the tutorial version we've made for you. And hopefully it's quite clear what you need to do. We've made a dictionary here, the hyperparameters dictionary. Your task is to create those inputs. You've seen one way of doing it with the sidebar. You could do it any other way that you want. So this one at the moment is quite static. It's got no inputs. This is just the dictionary. You don't need to change this code here. That's the part that's actually running the model. But you can see we're just writing the features here at the end. So your challenge is to turn this dictionary into something where the user can input and have a look at the different ways to write the code as well. You can always look at the solution file if you want to see how it was done. Cool. Any questions, just let me know. I'll leave this one up, and I'll walk around the room and see how you are getting on. But enjoy the exercise. Make your very own hyperparameter tuner. Okay, team. I know you're having fun playing with the inputs, but we're just going to take a moment to have a look at some of the outputs. So you'll see at the moment that in the tutorial version of the random forest, it just st.writes those raw outputs to the end. And what we've not looked at yet is how to actually do some of the really cool visualizations. So if we can go back to the playground files, if you want to open up Viz Playground, we're just going to take a look at some of the incredible visualization options that we have available within Streamlit. And we'll see how we can turn those quite dull inputs into something that looks pretty cool. So if you want to go for Viz Playground in the Playground folder, we can take a look. So as a reminder, I'm here in my Anaconda prompt. So I'm just going to move into my Streamlit folder and then my Playground folder. And now that I'm in the correct folder, I can do Streamlit, run, and then the name of my file. So that's going to be Viz Playground. No, it's not, because it sits in the pages one. What am I doing? What we actually want to run, let me remind myself. It's just Playground. So playground.py. Yeah, there we go. And we're going to look at this Viz Playground. As you can see at the moment, it's just placeholders, and we're going to take a look at how we can actually populate it. So before we had those metric labels that we saw on the hyperparameter tuner. So we're going to take a look at how we can actually go ahead and make those metrics. So let's have a look. Nice. So for those of you that know stereotypes about British people, they say that we can't stop talking about the weather. We're just absolutely obsessed with it. And we know that Salt Lake City had some really interesting weather yesterday. It got a little bit scary. Did everyone get an alert on their phone saying, like, severe weather warning, watch out? No? Okay. I did. So we're going to use some weather data to use our metrics. So we've got st header using the metrics label. And you can see that we've popped some code there for you ready to go, just so we can save a tiny little bit of time. So we've got our list of cities. I'm just going to go ahead and call this cities. So it's just a list of cities, because we're going to use a loop to be able to do this. Feel free to add in your own favorite cities. We've just got 4 to start with here, but add in whatever you would like. And one thing we're going to try and do is get these to be next to each other. So we're going to see London, then Salt Lake City, then Paris, and then Orlando. Fingers crossed this works. We'll see. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is introduce you to the columns. So I'm going to have my cursor in the wrong place. I'm going to move it to the correct place. And now I am going to say citycols. And this is going to be st.columns, and then 4. You actually have a couple of options with how you work with this. If you're someone that loves unpacking, we could go ahead and do something like col1, col2, col3, col4 equals st.columns. Like that. And that would go ahead and make those 4 objects. Each one would be a column. And then you would go ahead and put your items into that column, and they would display nicely next to each other. Or my preferred option is not unpacking, and then we can index in. So we've got city columns 0, 1, 2, and 3. And that way we can iterate through. Rather than having to do each one manually, we can use iteration. Nice. So we've got a list of cities, and then we've made our column objects. So what we want to do is essentially loop through. My code is very small. Apologies. Let me make it much bigger. That's much better, isn't it? So what we want to do is loop through and essentially find out the temperature in each of those cities and go ahead and populate it. Cool. So to do this, we are going to say for I and city, and we're just going to enumerate through cities. Like so. So we already know that in our city cols, we've got those index options of 0, 1, 2, 3. So by enumerating through the list, we've got that nice connection now. We've got the I from the enumerate, and that matches nicely to the I in our city cols. Cool. Now, I'm going to bring back that session state that we looked at earlier, because I don't want to keep going to this API. We don't want to get banned from the API. I'm a bit worried that we're all probably hitting it from the same IP address. We'll see what happens. I think they're pretty chill. So we can use our session state again. We could say if city not in, st.session_state. So essentially what we're going to be doing in the session state is creating a key value pairing where the key is going to be our city name and the value is going to be the temperature. So we're only going to do this if it's not already in there. If we've already got a temperature value, we're not going to be looking that one up. I've lost my cursor. There we go. So if city is not in the session state, now we can do our thing. I'm going to say city URL. We need to do one little change. As we can see, Salt Lake City has some beautiful spaces in, but that is not valid for the API that we're calling. So what we need to do is just really quickly city.replace, and then just replacing those spaces with the underscore, like so. I guess we could have done that in line, but never mind. And now we just need to populate the session state. So it's going to be st session state, like so, and onto our city. And you can see we've given you the requests thing up here as well already. So we just need to pop that down like so. It's just using that f string to call the output. If we quickly just grab this, web browser, and then if you're not sure if your city will be in there, you can quickly test it. Here we can see we get that output that London is currently 12 degrees. So you can always go to your web browser, replace city URL with the name of a city if you're not sure if it will work. Paris seems to be the warmest of the places at the moment. Nice. Cool. So we are enumerating through cities and just visiting a quick URL to grab the output and that text. And now what we want to do is go ahead and actually output this. So we want to hit backspace now. We don't want to be in that if statement anymore. We want to just be in the for loop. So we've exited the if statement, so this bit of code happens regardless of the outcome of the if. And now we want to populate those columns. So we had city underscore cols, and we know that we can use that index number, and we've got I for the index number. So it's just going to be city underscore cols, open up those square brackets for the indexing, and we want to index to I. So now it's going to be calling each column in turn, and to populate it, we now just do the method we want to call. So in our case, it is metric. And with metric, we can give it a label. So the label is going to be one of those lovely F strings again, and we'll just go for city temperature. That's not how you spell temperature. City temperature like that. And then we just need to give it the value, and the value is going to be st session state, and it's going to be for that city. Like so. And then just need to close that final bracket there. Yeah, that's good point. Thank you so much. Yeah, there we go. Thank you so much for the catch there. Yeah, it should be session state, not session city. So we've got city underscore cols. We're using I because we're iterating through to populate each one. We're then just calling .metric, and let's take a look at what that's given us. Probably loads of errors. Let's see. Let's get rid of the sidebar. Did I actually hit save? Yeah. There we go. I always find this one takes a teeny second the first time it runs. Let's see if it actually runs or if it's just erroring and not telling us. Let me do the split screen so you can actually still see the code. I really thought this might happen. I don't know if you can see the error message here, but this is essentially saying there's been too many requests to that URL from us at the moment, I believe. That's super fun. Yeah, good point. Have I just banned us from this? Let's find out. Wait, that makes no sense. There's no city there. What? I want to go to this place. Seems warmer than here, so it seems like a good place to. Okay. Is that just a? Let's just try refreshing it. Okay. Cool. Sure. There we go. Don't know what that error was about. But we can see it's gone ahead and populated in beautiful columns like so. And every time we move around or do something, it's not going to rerun that code because we've already popped it into our session state. So I don't know, Orlando is looking pretty warm at the moment. Home is looking a tiny bit warmer than here. It's fine. We'll pause here for a moment, just let you go ahead and replicate this code as well if you haven't already. Yes, it did. Yeah, otherwise you could use dot format or any of the formatting options or an F string. Value doesn't necessarily only take integers. It can be like integers followed by formatting, and it will be fine with that. So one thing to quickly demonstrate with this, I'm going to hard code it because I can't be bothered to deal with stripping out the formatting to do the maths. But there is an option called delta. I'm just going to set it to all of them, I don't know, 5 or something. But you kind of get these cool delta options. So here it's saying the difference is 5. You can put minus as well. You can also add the formatting. So when you're comparing two different things, it's quite nice to show that delta option. It just looks good. Cool. One of my favorite things to do in Streamlit as well, I love all the things, as you can tell, like everything is my favorite. But this one is actually genuinely cool. We can go ahead and maybe just hide these metric labels. So what we're going to do is go just here above where we're calling the columns. Very important we do this above. So we're just going to do width and then st.expander. Then we just need a little colon at the end, and we can give this a name. I'm going to call it weather metrics. And essentially, an expander is kind of like a thing that you can click and hide and show. So all we do, everything we want to be in that expander, just like normal Python, we just need to indent it so that it's in the width statement. And hopefully, just like that, we can see we've now got a little panel we can show and tell with. So do we want to see the weather or do we not? So you can see it's so simple to add things like the expander. It's just add the width and add everything there. It's the same with tabs as well. So you can make tabs in exactly the same way we've done the columns and the expander as well. Last little bits to show you before we start to wrap up. We've got some charts. We've pre-populated the charts for you just because visualization in Python is a wee bit more involved than we might like. But you can see in the code, we've gone ahead, we've made some random data. So it's going to be different every time we run it. And we've got our first placeholder here, which is Altair charts. And really, this bit is just to demonstrate to you how simple it really is to start with the visualization. Because you don't actually need to learn anything new. The only thing we do is st. And if it's for Altair, it's st Altair chart. And then we just give it the plot like so. And that is it. And then we get an error message because there should be an underscore. Yay. There we go. So you can see this creates the chart, and then, and then this shows it. So really similar to how we might do like plt.show, this is the equivalent of that. But by telling Streamlit what graph type we're using, it retains all of that beautiful interactivity. So Altair, for example, gives you these really nice hovers and things like that. So you can create your visualizations however you normally would, and it's going to go ahead and be able to do it. So for Altair charts, it's just Altair chart. And then for Seaborn, I don't know why Seaborn's repeated twice. That's really weird. For Seaborn and Matplotlib, because they're both part of the same kind of family, it's actually just st.py plot like so. You can just see we named it fig up here, so we're just doing the fig here. And it's actually the same for this one here. And it would be the same for this replication as well. Nice. So you just visualize how you would normally visualize, and then you find the method that relates to the library you've used. So Seaborn, matplotlib, it's pyplot. Altair, it is Altair. So it really is that simple and that easy. Just create your visualization how you normally would, and then you can go ahead and plot it to the web app. Easy peasy. Nice. Cool. Can see why we like the nice interactive session ones. I should add that Streamlit actually has its own built-in visualization as well. There's more on that in the documentation, so you don't need to use a library. You can use Streamlit's version as well. Cool stuff. I'll give you a second just to add those couple of lines of code, but they're quite basic. Just st.alter chart, scatterplot, and st.pyplot. So we are getting near to the end of the session. It's gone so quickly. So as a bit of a takeaway exercise and present for you, we just have a random error message. Cool, thanks, bye. You can see our car pricing predictor. So really similar to the hyperparameters, but this time it's happening after the model has been created. So what this does is take a whole bunch of user inputs and then uses that to make a prediction on the value of a car. So in the background of this, there is a linear regression model using some scraped data from a popular UK used car website. But you can see you select all your inputs, and it'll go ahead and tell you how much it thinks your car is worth in pounds sterling. The other thing you'll see in this demo example is the EDA. That's not the EDA. Why are you doing this? There we go. Cool. So this is a bit of an example of how you can start using all of those input parameters that we've seen before with the graphs. So essentially, it's the same as what we've done before. Now this time, you're just changing your data frame. You're changing the data that is going in, and you're changing those parameters. But essentially, as soon as you can pull anything from an input from a user, you can use that to dynamically make a change to what you are outputting. So these are presents for you to take away and enjoy. If you have any questions about them, do let me know. I'll give you all my card if you want it. I can be your personal Streamlit helper. I don't know, maybe Google it first. It'd probably be a bit quicker. But yeah, do have a play, have a look at the code, explore the model, and see everything in there. We just have some final wrap-up things to quickly go through, like so. Apologies that we didn't get too much time with that second example. Nice. So hopefully you feel that you can confidently create and deploy apps, both single and multi-page. Remember multi-page, you just make a folder called pages, you stick your pages in there, and you're kind of done. And hopefully you feel that you can confidently use a variety of widgets for, I think we focus more on input, it feels like. We kind of blitz through the output at the end, but hopefully you feel quite happy with those. And hopefully you feel excited about Streamlit. A lot of your questions were about the next steps, and that's so fantastic to see. So what do you do next? There is a really active Streamlit community. They have some incredible developer evangelists who are out there and are really wonderful and helpful. There's a Discord server for people who are using Streamlit. They're actually running a whole host of competitions and amazing things all of the time. At the moment, there's a competition to make I think it's just a web app, maybe using Snowflake. The prize is, I think, a trip to Vegas or something. Don't quote me on that. Is that right? It's a trip to Vegas. That's pretty cool. So yeah, do get involved with the Streamlit community. The help forum is really useful. Also, just practice and create. Just have a go at building things. I'm going to show you a couple of really useful tools in a second that can really help you with that creation step. The other one, if you're into it, learn in public. So that's when you create a tutorial, maybe a video, or just share with people the journey you are on. You saw me make so many mistakes today, so many typos, so many problems, but that is all about learning in public. By showing you those errors, we went on a journey together. You helped me debug some things, so thank you so much. But yeah, learning in public is a great way of sharing our knowledge and advancing our own. And also use the follow-up resources. So we're going to be sending you a message on the PyCon platform with some recommended follow-up resources. A lot of you went onto the Streamlit documentation. You'll see that it's beautiful. It's got Streamlit embedded throughout. It's so comprehensive, so interactive, and such a great place to really focus on learning. Cool. So one of the services available from Streamlit is the Community Cloud. And essentially it works really similar to what you've done today. You can keep developing locally, but then instead of deploying locally, we are instead going to pop it into GitHub, and then we can go ahead and use the Community Cloud to launch it. Essentially, it makes a little virtual machine. You tell it the requirements, it'll install all of the libraries that you need, and then it's going to go ahead and create that as a publicly accessible kind of resource online, or privately. You can also have private ones, but you can make them public and kind of share. It's so quick and so easy. It's got things like secrets built in as well, so if you've got API keys or database passwords or secure things you don't want to share, it has a system called Secrets that allows you to work with all of those. So Community Cloud, definitely check it out. It's free to use. At the moment, I assume it's going to be free to use forever. Free forever, yay! It's a really great resource, so definitely go ahead and check it out. I also want to draw your attention to a brand new company called Data Button. I only just got access to them. I'm pretty sure they're going to have logged me out, which is going to be, what web browser is it in? So Data Button is brand new. It's all built on Streamlit, and it's essentially a cloud-hosted location for developing your Streamlit apps. But it basically lets you run your code kind of like in the cloud. So for those of you that were having tech problems, this might be a great solution. It's even got kind of like hot reloading, so as you're typing, it will go ahead and kind of render the output on the side. It's also got some really cool jobs. So if you've got something like web scraping, API access, you can sell it to automatically run a script on a schedule. It's also got your own libraries. If you've created libraries, you can embed them. And it's also got data stores. So you can go ahead and store your data frames, your databases, anything you want kind of in their backend, and then just access it through the app. So they're brand new. They're currently like in private beta, but it's definitely worth checking out. I've got a little app that I made a little while ago. It's really silly. Just wait for it to load. It doesn't normally take this long. I've not used it in a few days. Yeah. Basically, some of my students I work with, they're meant to write little like profiles where they explain who they are and what they do. They hate doing it, so instead, we knew they were going to use ChatGPT. So this is a little mini form where they fill in a couple of things about them, then they hit generate, and it just goes to ChatGPT and generates it for them. And it hallucinates and makes stuff up the whole time, so the profiles it gives out are useless. But this took me minutes to build up using all of those text inputs you've seen, and being able to do it in Data Button made it super quick. So yeah, Data Button, brand new. Check them out. You might enjoy them. Cool. And yeah, hopefully you now know how to advance, and you're feeling quite excited about the future of Streamlit and all of the uses it can have. So thank you so much. There's time for questions if anyone has random questions they want to ask. Other than that, thank you all so much. You've been absolutely amazing. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your patience and attention. Enjoy PyCon. Have a wonderful time, and thank you all so much. Cool. Hi. This is just PowerPoint, but I use the morph if you meant the animations. Yeah, you just use morph. Thank you. It's a template. I can't take too much credit. Hi.
These all look really nice, like taking up the full browser, but if you have to embed them into like an existing website, like branded company stuff, is that pretty simple to do?
As in embedding your Streamlit? Yeah. So that's the really cool thing, that you can use CSS and any branding that you have. So the way you see it out of the box is just the kind of the bog standard, but you can set custom themes, you can bring in your own images, and the CSS is so like customizable. You can change basically anything that you want on the page, and you would just create a CSS file that you then import as HTML. And that will like override. When they made it, all of the IDs and everything are beautiful and set up in a way that it's really easy to override with your own custom theming. So yeah, you can customize the look and feel. It's always worth making a bit of a template for a company that formulates kind of like the basis of what you do next. So yeah, great question. That's it. Thank you all so much.